Amaka sat in the back of the mathematics class, meticulously transcribing notes into her worn notebook. Unlike her rich classmates, Amaka purchased her school supplies at the tiny stationery store in Sabo, where her father occasionally bartered. "Her calculator is probably not even a scientific one," Ogechi whispered loudly to Njozi, making sure Amaka would hear it. Amaka gripped her pencil firmer but continued writing. She had earned her place here, and her entrance test results were the best in Royal Crest Academy's history, which seemed to annoy her rich classmates even more than her second-hand uniform. Her parents were overjoyed that she received the scholarship, even if it meant that her father had to put off fixing up his market business for months in order to pay for the necessary school uniforms. Her mother had shed tears of happiness, claiming that this education would unlock doors that were previously closed to them. "Amaka, you will go far," she said. While the other kids preferred the cafeteria with its pricey international menu, Amaka would eat the jollof rice and plantains her mother had packed for her in the library during lunch breaks, because it reminded her of home, the small but cozy one-room space where her family lived. Mrs. Udoka, the librarian, once said to her, "You shouldn't be hiding in here. You should be able to enjoy the cafeteria just like everyone else." Amaka just smiled. "I like it here, Ma. Besides, I need to maintain my scholarship. I can't let my parents down." In class, Amaka excelled. Her hand would shoot up first whenever teachers asked questions. Her assignments were always perfect, and her test scores never dropped below 95%. But her academic success only seemed to fuel the hatred from Ogechi's group. Yuju had attempted to trip her on the stairs. They would still dump water over her books, hide her lunchbox, and make snide remarks about her chipped shoes. Amaka, however, ignored everything, concentrating on her studies and her ambition of becoming a doctor. Alama was the only one who showed her any compassion, the chaplain's daughter, who occasionally spent her lunch break in the library with her. The little connection vanished after Ogechi's group cornered Olama and threatened to make her life miserable if she persisted in speaking to the charity case. Amaka learned the day before everything changed that she had been chosen to represent Royal Crest Academy at the National Science Competition. The announcement was made during morning assembly, and as she approached to accept the nomination letter, she could sense Ogechi's group glaring at her. The principal had proudly stated that the Royal Crest Academy stands for excellence, irrespective of background. Later that day, she discovered that her science project had been wrecked in the lab, and there was a note on the remains saying, "Know your place," as she helped her mother make egusi soup that evening for dinner. Although Amaka had thought about telling her parents about the bullying, she couldn't bear to add to their troubles because of her father's exhaustion from a hard day at the market, and her mother's hard work cleaning homes. Her mother inquired, "How was school today?" "Fine," she replied. The following day, everything was all right. Ogechi and her group invited Amaka to study with them after school, which was the first time they had ever been kind to her. She was still wary, but also optimistic that maybe the science competition had finally changed their perception of her. As they shoved her into the shallow grave they had dug behind the school, they laughed as they covered her screaming mouth with dirt. As her lungs bored for air, Amaka clawed at the ground with all her might, pushing, but the weight was overwhelming, which suffocated her as she yelled, and that hope vanished. In the forest, she could hear their laughter disappearing above ground. The Royal Crest Academy's cruel stare had truly buried her alive in order to teach the common street rat to know her place, which was the last thing Amaka heard before everything went dark. That evening, Amaka didn't come home, and her mother, Mrs. Johnson, kept pacing around their little space, saying, "Something is wrong. Amaka always calls if she's going to be late. Mr. Johnson had already walked to the school twice, but he only found locked gates and a sleeping security guard. "Let's call the police," Mrs. Johnson said, her hands trembling as she called the police officer, who responded in a nonchalant manner. "Madam, stay cool. These wealthy school youngsters occasionally visit their friends' homes without informing their parents. If she hasn't come back by tomorrow, give us a call." The following morning, however, Amaka's parents knew better since their daughter never went anywhere without their permission. "We haven't seen Amaka since yesterday afternoon," the principal stated, looking uneasy. According to her classmate, she left after classes ended. Mr. Johnson asked which classmates saw her last. Ogechi and her group were summoned to the office, where they were seated in their neat uniforms, appearing worried. We asked her to join us in studying, but she replied that she needed to return home. Mrs. Johnson scrutinized the girls, and something about their flawless demeanor and rehearsed responses didn't sit well with her. Days turned into weeks as Mr. Johnson neglected his market business in order to look for his daughter. He visited every police station, posted flyers all over the town, and pleaded with television stations to run Amaka's tale. Mrs. Johnson quit cleaning the homes and spent her days praying and crying instead. Her neighbors formed search groups, but they came up empty. "These affluent folks' school," their neighbor Mama Rita said. "Why did you send her there? They don't like poor people's children." Following the local media coverage of the story, Detective Paul was given the case. He sat in the Johnsons' room, taking notes. "Your daughter, did she have any enemies at school?" Paul asked. Mrs. Johnson dried her tears and responded that her daughter had never complained, but that she had occasionally seen water stains on her books. "She would return home with bruises all over her body," Mr. Johnson said, adding that she fell while playing. However, the detective questioned students at Royal Crest Academy. Most of them avoided eye contact and gave vague responses, but Alama, the chaplain's daughter, eventually broke down. Ogechi and her group, they were horrible to her, calling her a bush girl and destroying her belongings. "Please don't inform them that I told you. My father requires this work," she said. Detective Paul tried to interrogate Ogechi and her group again, but her parents responded by sending costly attorneys instead. One attorney representing them stated that they had no knowledge of the missing student and that we would be grateful if you would put an end to this harassment. 3 weeks after Amaka's disappearance, strange things started at Royal Crest Academy. The first of these occurrences was Ogechi's encounter in the restroom. Ogechi stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror of the east wing of Royal Crest Academy. The dark circles under her eyes, which were evidence of her sleepless nights since then, could not be concealed by her beautifully arranged braids or immaculate attire. She reminded herself, "Get it together. She's no one but a street girl who doesn't belong here." Despite the warm September morning, the bathroom lights flashed on, causing Ogechi to freeze as a chilly breeze brushed her neck. She saw a shadowy person standing behind her in the mirror. She turned, but the room was empty. Her voice echoed off the tile walls. When she turned back to the mirror, she saw 2 words written across the glass in what appeared to be red nail polish. "I'm back, Ogechi." Her scream reverberated through the whole of Royal Crest Academy. "Did you see Ogechi at lunch?" As they made their way to chemistry class, Amanda whispered to Ngozi, "She looks terrible." Ngozi shifted the weight of her school bag on her shoulder and said, "She's been dramatic." We all agreed never to discuss what happened to that scholarship student, and the police deemed it a runaway case. But what if? Don't cut her off abruptly, and everyone believed that she fled from the pressure of not belonging. The chemistry lesson started, and they sat in their usual seats in the back of the classroom. On their bench, written in red nail polish, were the words, "You buried me, but the truth won't stay buried." That evening, 5 girls, the cream of Royal Crest Academy, met at Ogechi's family home. These girls were Ogechi, Njosi, Amanda, Yuju, and Mirabelle. They were now sitting in terrified silence, their customary confidence broken. "Someone knows what we did to Amaka," Yuju said. "That's impossible," Mirabelle broke down. "We were the only ones there that night," but her hands were trembling. Ogechi was pacing the room. "There's no evidence. It was just some silly jokes." "Pranks, Amanda," the writing said in a cracked voice. "Somehow it's her. She's dead," Ngozi screamed. The lights in Ogechi's room started to flicker, and the temperature dropped so suddenly that they could see their breath. "No, no," Yuju whimpered, as the TV switched on by itself. They recognized a familiar voice through the white noise, one that had pleaded for mercy that evening in the woods. In the center of the room, Amaka appeared, covered in dirt, with her school uniform ripped and filthy. The girls screamed and huddled together. "We're sorry," Ogechi cried. "You are sorry," Amaka's ghost got closer. "You weren't content to bury me alive just because I was poor, different. And my father was a market trader, while yours owns the entire market." "We'll admit it," Amanda sobbed. "We'll tell everyone what we did." "Yes," Amaka's spirit said, her voice sounding unnatural. "You will." The morning after, Royal Crest Academy was overrun with police vehicles and news enthusiasts. 5 of the school's most well-known pupils had entered the police station at daybreak. The girls had broken down completely. "We had no intention of murdering her," Ogechi said at the police station. "We just wanted to frighten her, but she fought so hard." The police discovered Amaka's corpse precisely where they had buried her. Mrs. Johnson broke down when the police brought her daughter's body home, and the entire street turned out for the funeral. The shops of the market women were shut down. Despite their parents' wealth and power, the trial was quick, and all 5 girls were sentenced to juvenile jail. Their family offered the Johnsons millions in restitution. Mr. Johnson said, his voice stern, "Can your millions bring back my daughter? Can they give her the future she dreamed of?" The Amaka Johnson Foundation was founded by Royal Crest Academy to offer complete scholarships to disadvantaged students. But more significantly, they implemented stringent anti-bullying policies. In juvenile detention, the 5 girls who were serving their sentences were haunted not just by Amaka's ghost, but also by the reality of their misdeeds. Their wealthy parents were unable to shield them from the remorse that gnawed at their hearts. 1 week later, Mrs. Udoka, the librarian, saw Amaka in the library. The ghost was in her typical location, with books scattered about, as she was getting ready to close up. "Rest well, my dear," Mrs. Udoka said, with a serene smile on her face. "Justice has been served."